Coming up, a Sad Styles production.
Get into it.
And welcome to the Retrograde video game podcast, where this week we take a look at another one of the worst years in gaming history.
Yes, absolutely. That was the year that this video game podcast started. My name's Andrew Baskin, but with me as always is the pet boy of podcasting, Mr. Bebop himself.
Mikey G. Hadid, Aaronworth.
Gigi Hadid?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Well, Andrew, I mean, you don't know when her birthday is?
Oh, she born in 1995?
Are you asking me or telling me? Because I can tell you, Andrew, of course she was born on April 23rd, 1995.
Did you look up famous 1995 birthdays?
No, Andrew, I just looked at my Gigi Hadid book of facts and I picked my favorite one, which is she's born in 1995. We were talking, we're like, what do we want to focus on for this episode? Yes. And I was like, what if we do another bad year in gaming? And that's when I set the trap and you fell right into it, because all I wanted to do was talk about Gigi Hadid's birthday, baby.
I was going to say, when you're like, did you look it up? You're like, no. I'm like, no, that's worse. That's worse that you knew that off the top of your head. Yeah. April 30th, 1995. That's Gigi Hadid's birthday.
100%. I write it on the back of all of my posters of her. What else do you expect of me? This is going to be a really exciting episode. We did this once before. We've done a lot of episodes focused on some of the best years in gaming history. We did one based on 2014, which is based on some of the worst years in gaming history. At the time, we did call 2014 the worst year in gaming history. But I think for a lot of reasons, 1995 might be in the conversations there. Now, when you look back on years of gaming, I think one thing that we need to get out of the way right away is there are always going... What's that?
Oh, just years of gaming. It's just like a very interesting wave. When you look back at the years of gaming.
But weirdly, only like 40 years of gaming. Like not a ton of years of gaming, right?
I know. We are participating in active history of video games. Like we are... Yeah, it's crazy.
You and I specifically in the downfall of it, but, you know.
It is crazy to think that in like, you know, you look back at, whoever, what's his name? Burns, the documentarian. When you look back at like, yes, Gilbert Burns, exactly. The MMA fighter and also documentarian. When he does his version in 200 years, we might be a part of it. It might be like, the Retrograde podcast once posited, and you're like, ooh, very good.
There was a booming time in the gaming industry when everyone wanted a gaming podcast. Some of them, like Triple Click and Get Played, were good. Others, like the Retrograde specifically, not so much.
Well, I don't know. We're a cult classic.
Before I get to the point that I was going to make there, Ken Burns, by the way,
thank you.
I get to the point that Gilbert Burns' brother. I did want to say, speaking of, reception and us not being as shitty as our parents seem to think we are, we put the call to action out there, asking people to give us 5-star reviews. Not any 5-star review, but a 5-star review that specifically says you get used to them. You guys showed up, which I didn't know if I expected or not, but I really appreciate that. It somehow got us to the top 5 video game podcasts in Australia. That was a really cool surprise.
Oh, good day.
Yeah, good day, mate. And all hail New Zealand. I know you guys love New Zealand.
Australia loves New Zealand. Are they natural rivals?
I think they are. I think the funny thing is Australia is always like, we love Canadians, or sorry, they're like, good day, mate. We love Canadians.
Hey, cunts.
Hey, cunts.
I love you, Canucks.
And Canadians and Australians get along really well. But when you look at nearby...
If we didn't have Australians, Mikey, who would operate our ski hills? Like,
that's a great point.
They would go unoperated. If you fucking go to... Yeah, so go ahead.
No, do you think people in Australia realize how many Australians live in like British Columbia, Canada, operating our ski hills?
Well, it's like you hear this about like Irish people too. Like there's more Irish young people out abroad than there are at home. And I swear to God, it has to be close to that Australia based on the fact of how many Australians I meet on a daily basis. But like Mikey's right. Whistler, Alberta, there's tons of mountains and ski hills and stuff like that. And they are run exclusively by Australians.
Yeah. But in terms of like nearby similar cultures that kind of compete with one another, we do have a lot more in common with New Zealand than Australia, because Australia would be like more to the US relative to New Zealand, because Australia always looks at New Zealand like, who the fuck are these cats? That's the only word in Australian I know how to say, because Australian is
K-A-N-T-S. Yeah.
K-A-N-T-S. And then New Zealand's look at us like, are we kind of have some camaraderie over being the little brother in these situations relative to a larger country nearby us.
Oh, that's interesting. I never thought about it that way.
So what I was going to say about the years of gaming history that you go back to, there are a lot of really good years. I would say way more really good years than there were bad years. So when we look for the quote unquote worst years in gaming history, you're always going to find good games. This year is no exception. 2014 was no exception. And within that, we're trying to look for something specific about the year, whether it's news related or some weird games that were released or a fewer number of really good games. And that's why we settled this time on 1995 for a variety of reasons. And Andrew, do you want to introduce kind of the premise of the draft that we're going to get into then to accommodate and account for some of the good games as well as the bad?
Yes. So in previous drafts, what we do is we have categories because we're trying to assemble the best team possible. Well, that's different this time. We are trying to assemble some good teams, but we're trying to assemble 3 good games that we are picking ourselves whenever we want. There are going to be 6 rounds. And there's going to be 3 bad games we are drafting for the opposing team. Yeah. We are, putting an anchor around their neck. So you could pick, in the first round, you could pick good team, good game, bad game, doesn't matter. But you're going to get 6 games total, 3 going to the other team because they're bad, and 3 going to your team because they're good.
Yeah, thankfully we're not drafting against blacksmiths, right?
Why is that now?
Well, because I'm just using your own words, like a good lawyer and debate artist would do. But you said that we're putting an anchor around one another's necks. And I said, if I were a blacksmith, I would be like, thank you for that. I'm going to forge a sword and stab you in the goddamn back with this thing with my next pick, which is X, Y, or Z.
That's a bad game. But yeah, so wait, you're making a sword out of the anchor? Like you're using that metal?
No. Oh, wait, shit. I'm thinking of anvils, I think.
Yes, you are. That's why yeah. I'm like my own Madam Web, and I'm just trying to make you fall into my trap.
Well,
that movie's going to be so good.
I can't wait. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Can we just call an audible and talk about Madam Web for a minute here?
Oh, watch out, guys. We're going to do an all emergency Madam Web episode where we run out on Thursday night to go watch the movie.
I can't wait. I'm more excited for that than the Super Bowl, which happened a couple weeks ago.
Yes, it definitely happened a couple weeks ago, and what a game it was.
What a game. Did you expect any of that, Andrew?
No, my gosh, absolutely. When Patrick Mahomes got hurt and Taylor Swift put on number 15, just shoulder pads, ran onto the field, didn't even throw to Travis Kelce, ran in the winning touchdown.
Well, you talk about Travis Kelce, but what I found funny was that the brothers played a prank. It wasn't even Travis wearing the Kelce jersey for half the game.
Right. Yes, exactly. Like it's it was actually 2 kids,
No, it was Travis Kelce's brother.
Oh, Jason Kelce. Another football player. But that's not as shocking. I was like, oh, another football player. A pretty good one, too.
Shocking versus realistic, Andrew. We're talking about what actually happened at the Super Bowl, not about, some imaginary fairy tale world that you're living in where blacksmiths can make weapons out of anchors.
It was you.
You said that. Andrew, I don't think that's true at all. And our listeners will remember history the correct way. Just like I remember history as the days on which Gigi Hadid was born.
Yes, and Gilbert Burns will tell us about it one day. How do they make the anvil then?
Probably with a blacksmith.
Yeah. Actually, with a sword, amazingly enough. It's just like opposite.
It's one hand washes the other, one sword makes an anvil. Yes, that's the old saying by blacksmiths.
Yes. Yes, of course.
Before we get into the draft, Andrew, because we got a lot of good games and a lot of bad games to talk about, why don't we just set the stage a little bit talking about 1995 in general? I'm gonna put a little bit of an emphasis on the video game element, but we're also going to talk some general pop culture to bring us back to the headspace of where we were at in 1995. Andrew, before I do that, do you have any context for 95? What was going on in your life at that time?
Oh my God, 95. I'm under 10.
10 feet tall.
No,
because you shortly became over 10 feet tall.
Yes. We all know that. I was born a giant and I shrunk into my size currently. And I probably will continue to shrink. That is the way human evolution works. But yeah, no, I don't I'm a stupid child. I have no buying power whatsoever. I'm completely reliant on my parents. It sucks. Life is awful. I hate it. Not like today where I'm awesome.
Well, in some ways it was awful, but in a lot of ways it was great. You didn't have the responsibilities and the work and You got to hang out with your mom all day. That was cool.
I don't know. This is like this is like people that are like, oh, I'd go back to high school. I'm like, you're crazy. It's like, I understand the lack of responsibility. That's fun that you didn't have to understand what money was or, whatever. But at the same time, it's like you have no independence whatsoever. Meals are getting cooked for you. You don't choose which meals. You don't choose when you go to bed. That's big. You don't choose what your activities are. And school sucks. I'm so glad I'm not in school. Ugh.
I actually am firmly in the other camp. I love school so much. I miss school. I love it.
You can go back.
I love a good test. I love writing an essay and a teacher saying good job. I love sitting in the front of the class and raising my hand. And it sounds like I'm making a bit right now, but I miss those days quite a bit.
No. You don't have the nightmares that there was a test tomorrow and
I have those still to this day once a week.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Which is wild. It probably means we got something wrong with the system of education that we all grew up in, because it literally traumatized us. But
we learned to be scared of it, not appreciate it, or So I know. Sorry, 1995. Yeah, no, I don't fantasize about those times. So I don't know. I would have gotten lots of video games. I would have had Sega Genesis for sure. But yeah, no. Why? What are your memories in 1995?
I mean, it's. I think at this point it would have been pre N64. Most of the time that we're talking about here, I think most of my gaming habits would have been Super Nintendo at this point. A little bit of Sega Genesis as well. I really look back fondly, specifically with regards to my gaming habits of this time, playing with my brother. We'd get home from school, we'd throw on a Super Nintendo, or those weekends, those winter weekends when there was nothing to do but stay inside and try to beat Contra 3, the Alien Wars, for the 90th time or something like that. I do look back fondly. Obviously, it's a little bit of rose-colored glasses because there were some issues, like I couldn't drive, and my mom didn't want to hang out with me all the time. That's why she got me the video games.
Right.
And that was offensive, and I definitely hold a little bit of a grudge there. That's why I don't call her anymore, and I don't
cut her out of your life.
Cut her out of my life, and I don't visit her in the home that we put her in, which was an abandoned hospital.
Yeah, it's weird. She's 51 too. She's totally fine on her own. We just time to get in.
The only reason she's so confused isn't the Alzheimer's. It's because we constantly have her blindfolded. That's it.
Yeah. I've been gaslighting her for 10 years, and that's how, she doesn't have nothing wrong with her, but we made her think this. Yeah.
Whenever she goes to bed, I put her keys in the freezer, so she thinks she did it when she woke up.
It's so scary because it would take a lot of work, but you could totally do that to someone and make them think they're just losing their mind.
Yeah, I already am pretty convinced I'm losing my mind. If someone put one of my keys in the freezer, I'd be like, okay, put me in a home right now. Take away all my responsibility. I can't do this anymore.
One singular key.
Yeah, of cocaine.
Yeah. Oh, right. Oh, there we go. Okay, that makes more sense.
So let's go over a couple things that happened in 1995. Again, we're going to focus a little bit on the gaming side
Gigi Hadid
here.
Was born.
When Gigi Hadid was born, April 23rd, obviously. I don't think there's anything more that needs to be said about that. The Satellaview, which is a console that I'm weirdly fond of. It was an add-on to the Super Famicom that was released in Japan. We talked about the Satellaview as kind of like the prototype online gameplay thing. It was sort of this addition to the Famicom where you can almost rent games on a cartridge and put them in there. You could have some online gaming competitions. We've talked about it on the podcast before. I just find that thing very fascinating. It's a shame that it didn't do better, but I think it was a little bit too ahead of its time. Here's a bad thing that happened though. The Virtual Boy was released and discontinued in the same year.
Yeah. Wow. It's like Icarus flew too close to the sun.
Yeah. We also had the Sega Saturn being released. It sold pretty well that year, but I think ultimately, when I look back on the Sega Saturn, I kind of see it as a flop. I think it had a lot of potential there, but when you hear Sega Saturn, are you like this monolith of a machine, or are you like, that was kind of a joke?
I would generally think of it as a bad console, or just a kind of a failure because it didn't have long legs. Like the unfortunate part is like
Gigi Hadid.
Which famously very long legs. She's a model, right? Like we're talking about the same person.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
She's, I think if memory serves me correct, she's 5'11", which is like 1.8 meters.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
That's quite tall, I guess. Yes. but like if you do not have long legs like Gigi Hadid, like you will be seen as a failure. And so even though there might be like, yes, good moments to the Sega Saturn, I will say also Sega Saturn is just a great name. Like so when I always think of a Sega Saturn, I'm like, ooh, nice. Oh no, not nice. Okay.
True.
But there are good moments. And so like, I don't want to throw the baby over the bathwater, but at the end of the day, like it didn't have a long life. So it can't be seen as a success within Sega. So
yeah. Kind of similar to my mom, if we have any say, you know, we're just kind of tucking her away somewhere. I don't even want to say that. I don't like that I said that. I don't.
You don't like that you said that? You don't like making fun of your mom?
No, it's the long life thing that I don't want to think about.
Oh, Jesus, she's never gonna die.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're cursing her to a shorter life. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I agree with the Sega Saturn. I think it's cool. As a kid, it was like this mystery console that I found fascinating, but ultimately, I have to assume it was kind of a failure because it was kind of the onset of the fall of Sega making hardware. And similar to the Dreamcast, I think it was really cool, but it just execution didn't work. Maybe it was the games that were on there. I'm not sure, but you know, I can imagine an alternate dimension in which Sega is still around making hardware if they had some different leadership at the time.
Sure. Yeah. It made some really crucial decisions that ultimately did not work out. But yeah. So you were playing what you said, the Super Nintendo at the time?
I was playing mainly the Super Nintendo at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was mainly Genesis at this point.
Yeah. Well, it would have made sense to be playing one of those because this was the year that the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES, was discontinued. I mean, it had to happen eventually. But you and I always talk about how during these years, maybe more like 93, 94, we were kind of playing the Super Nintendo and Nintendo in tandem. Not necessarily one is better than the other, but more like both of them have different games. Therefore, I'm going to have both of them and play both games, which is kind of neat.
Yeah.
Here's something that I didn't know happened, and I think you'll find this kind of interesting here. Nintendo in 1995 sued Samsung for promoting piracy.
Whoa! Wait, what? To what?
Yeah.
Like how so?
So basically what happened, there was this accusation that Nintendo levied against Samsung that they were promoting piracy through the sale of counterfeit Donkey Kong Country cartridges. Now, the reason for this is Samsung produced mask ROM chips, which were used as storage within the Nintendo contract. Samsung was like one of only 2 suppliers that did this specifically for Donkey Kong Country, and they would do other games as well. So they worked really, really closely with Nintendo, but Nintendo claimed that they were supplying these chips to third parties. And then those third parties were putting the software of Donkey Kong Country onto the cartridges and then selling them. So Samsung obviously turns around and says, like, we have no control. Like, yes, we're selling ROM chips to other companies, but these aren't your chips. They're ours. We have no control over what is being put on them.
Yes.
Just like if you make blank CDs, you can't be sued if someone burns, an artist's album to it. You're not responsible for the content which is put onto it. Even so, Samsung had also been doing work with Sega at the time, and Sega provided them with codes that they could flash onto the ROM chips, which would seek out pirated software and prevent it from working. They asked Sega for this, they asked Nintendo for this, and Nintendo said no, and then turns around and says, well, you need to stop selling to this company. You need to vet every company you're selling to, rather than us just providing you with the code. It must have been proprietary or something like that. But Samsung's like, you can't deal with our business like that. Yeah.
What people do with our product after we sell it to them is not our problem.
Exactly.
I think this is the argument for handguns, to be honest. But yeah,
we all should have them in case someone tries to counterfeit Donkey Kong Country.
100%. If somebody tries to force a pirated Donkey Kong on me, I'm going to shoot them in the head.
100%.
100%. Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know that story at all.
There were theories that the suit had less to do with the counterfeit of Donkey Kong Country and more to do with ethnic rivalries between Korea-based Samsung and Japan-based Nintendo. Now, how much that has to do with anything, I have no idea. It was a theory that was put out there. I find it strange because it was actually Nintendo of America that ultimately ended up suing or trying to sue Samsung. It was a suit. There was a countersuit. It was settled out of court. We don't know what happened, but what a strange situation where you're Nintendo and Samsung working very closely with one another. And in some capacity, they are the enemy. And in some capacity, they are keeping your business afloat. It's a strange situation.
Big company.
Yeah.
Big company. You know, you can still sit there and shake hands. Legal departments fighting each other.
Exactly. That's what the legal department is for. You guys deal with this so we can maintain business as usual. The other one of the things, the bad elements of 1995, because I think again what we want to do is kind of set up some of the negative elements of this year. Too many FMV games. This is coming soon after Myst. And I think every game tried to be a version of that. There's a lot of bad attempts at it. And then FMVs in general, I just think have aged poorly. I know there's some nostalgia to them, just like there's nostalgia for CRT TVs. But I think just like CRT TVs, FMVs are bulky and ultimately low quality. Do you pine for the days of FMVs? Do you miss them?
Fuck no. No, absolutely not. It's a cheap gimmick in my mind. It takes me way out of the game. Sorry, just because everyone knows at home, I know this. I just want to explain it. What's a CRT television? A tube television?
Yeah, like those old ones that you'd play like a Super Nintendo on. And the reason why they're highly sought out is because these high definition TVs are so high quality that the games weren't really made to be played on them. So if you want the full feel of what it used to be like to play on a tube television, which the games were programmed to be played on, you need the actual hardware to do it. And it's kind of weird to me that no one's gone back to like remake old CRT TVs or the equivalent of them in the modern day, like a lighter feel. It might just be that the components involved are too heavy and there's no way to do it. But you would think that there'd be something like that, like the equivalent of like a Bluetooth vinyl speaker or something like that.
Yeah, right. Like I feel like we have, made attractive a lot of old technology. So it feels like that would just be a natural step.
Exactly.
Except the problem is you got to make like a 5 by 5 foot square in your apartment or house, to make room for this huge ass television.
Exactly. So we went over some of the bad things that happened, the NES being discontinued, Nintendo suing Samsung. We want them to play it nice in the sandbox, the Virtual Boy being released and discontinued in the same year. On the good side, O.J. Simpson was acquitted.
Hey, that's awesome.
Let's give a round of applause for
great. Yeah, 100%. Justice prevailed.
We knew it. On the good side, PlayStation came out in the US. Pretty good.
That's good. That's good. Number 2.
The first ever E3 took place in May of 1995.
What's going on with E3? That doesn't happen anymore?
It's pretty much been canceled. I think COVID.
What did it say?
Was the what did you say?
Sorry, you said it was canceled, and I just asked.
Yeah, it said.
We find old tweets from E3.
It was actually anti-vax, and yeah, came out.
Big Fauci,
big Fauci, Big Papa Fauci. It's
Big Papa Fauci and
good,
Pfizer
good
telling
name.
E3 no.
Yeah, I think it basically just had to be put on hiatus as a result of COVID. I know it was also kind of on its last legs prior to that, and then there were companies pulling out to do their own press conferences, and now it's kind of just this conglomerate of like the Summer of Games, which is largely spearheaded by Jeff Keighley, but it happens around the same time. Every company has their own press conferences. There are some amalgamations of those where they'll all throw like a few trailers out. We focused on those on the podcast, but there just was no real space for E3 anymore.
Right, yeah, because everyone does it in their own way.
Exactly.
Which makes sense because then they get to own the messaging a little bit more.
100%. Windows 95 came out. A lot of people like that.
That makes sense.
Toy Story came out. That was a big year for movies and kind of started the whole comparison of saying one day video games will look like Toy Story, which is hilarious because if you go back and watch Toy Story, it doesn't really look that good anymore. I mean, it looks fine. Yeah, it looks like a cartoon.
That changed. Yeah, actually, I think I'm surprised at how good it looks, to be honest. We were having this conversation about Lord of the Rings the other day, and Smeagol, should look laughable, and he doesn't. And it's kind of like it doesn't look great, but it should be like, oh my god. But I think we are going to look back at those movies and just constantly be surprised that that was a marvel. I can't believe they made those, and they're actually pretty good because the road is paved with people going I'm going to make 3 books all at once and they're going to be good movies. I'm going to make 5 parts.
Yes.
And then it's just sucks, just awful. We never talked about it everywhere in the world. And Lord of the Rings is just the one outlier.
I agree. I think Lord of the Rings are some of the best movies ever made. And I know that sounds like hyperbole, but fucking hell, I went back and rewatched it a couple years ago. And from the story to the setting to the acting to the way it's directed, there's an element of cheese to it, but at the right moments, it is fantasy at the end of the day. It's just so good. It deserves a rewatch every couple of years in my mind.
Oh yeah, well, it's a big holiday movie for people. They watch it around Christmas.
Oh yeah, because they have the time to do it.
Yeah, well, holidays. When your mom's locked up, you got all the time in the world. And we were doing this the other day because like the other problem is like Harry Potter came out while we were kids, right? Probably around 1995. And so it felt silly because I saw the inception of it, where I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's, whatever. Some person's just making this up.
Right.
Whereas J.R.R. Tolkien, people treat it like it's the Bible, right? And so when you see things that are written, you're like, oh, he's just a guy writing stuff that's probably pretty high. Because somebody said, Smeagol's a companion who tries to strangle him when they find the ring in a boat, when they first find the ring, right? His friend's name is Deagle.
Really?
Smeagol and Deagle.
Andrew.
So it's like, yeah.
This is now our names canon. On the podcast. Smeagol and Deagle.
Smeagol and Deagle?
Were they morning radio hosts or what?
Yeah, Smeagol, Deagle, and Toilet in the morning. Yeah, it was it's unbelievable to me that he's just like fighting PTSD from World War I and smoking pot, and he goes, Deagle, I don't know, just write it down. Let's move on. There's like millions of words. No one's ever going to care.
And many other better names too than Deagle. Wow, that's
anything else.
Deagle's got to be ripe for a Deagle's nuts joke. I don't know how it's going to happen, but it feels like there's something there.
It is a looking around the room for an idea kind of thing. Like, and what's his friend's name? Deagle?
That's good.
Are they brothers? Nope.
GameFAQs debuted as a website. That's also pretty big, as in terms of games journalism. Nintendo first revealed a playable version of what was at the time called the Nintendo Ultra 64. It had two playable games. One was Super Mario 64, and there was a Kirby game on there as well. That was, 1996, just changing my life and what I assumed video games could be when the N64 came out. That was a whole different story.
Oh God. Yeah. Well, absolutely.
BioWare and Remedy became companies. Remedy obviously seeing a lot of success with the recent release last year of Alan Wake 2, and BioWare just, the success of the Mass Effect franchise and Dragon Age, et cetera, et cetera. So there was some good as well that took place in 1995. Now, before we get into the draft itself, why don't we take a quick snapshot to get a better understanding of what people were playing of the best-selling consoles of the year, okay? So I'm going to start
consoles.
with
okay, good.
Consoles,
you're going to start naming games? No.
I'm going to do the top 5, and I'm going to start with the lowest selling. The Game Boy sold over 1 million units. The Genesis sold 2 million units. The Sega Saturn sold 2 million units. The PlayStation sold 3.1 million units. And the Super Nintendo sold 3.5 million units. The year before the Nintendo 64 comes out, the Super Nintendo is still kicking ass with 3.5 million units sold worldwide.
Wow, that's insane. Wow.
So an impressive thing. So now that we've kind of established this image of what 1995 was at the time, some of the games that we were playing, some of our gaming habits, the good, the bad, the Gigi Hadid births, the OJ Simpson acquittals. Let's talk about this draft, Andrew. I have some parameters in mind for how I determine a bad game, because we have to draft the bad games for, like, I have to draft mine for your team, the quote unquote anchor around our necks, and you have to draft them for mine. Did you have any methodology in mind for what would constitute a bad game?
Yeah, I tried to look at scores. I tried to, first of all, I looked at all the game releases. You just kind of go up and down, and you go, okay, I remember this being bad, or I remember this being good. Then you pencil it down. And then you start going through all the scores and reviews, and I had trouble finding Metacritic stuff for this one, so I couldn't, so I was more just kind of going off of just what I thought was going to be good and bad. I found the good to be pretty plentiful. There are a lot of good games and a lot of very, me core games, things that would shape me dramatically in the good side. The bad side is a little bit tougher to distinguish. I think we'll have a lot of games being back and forth where one of us is going to be like, oh, that wasn't good. It's like, no, whatever. Or I like that one. It's like, no, it was actually pretty bad.
Exactly.
I think that's going to be more of it. I also will say, I think you are getting the first pick because I got the first pick last time.
Yes.
There is a Michael Jordan of this draft. There is a, almost, well, what is pick 2? Because everyone knows what pick 1 is going to be.
Yes, there is. There is.
Don't act coy.
Well, but I don't. Oh man, it throws off my draft strategy. But I think I may have to go with it. I'm pretty sure.
No, don't do it. Why? Don't throw off your draft strategy, you stupid idiot. Don't take the absolute number 1 lock pick.
Okay. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. We'll see. I think I have to for the sake of a draft. I think mainly because I don't want you to have it.
For the sake of that's the point. Yeah. There you go.
This is how
the sake of the draft. Like the sanctimonious. Like oh my goodness.
But
it's gone because I want my team to be good.
No, there's a fun element though of drafting some of the bad games, and I think that's what I wanted to lead off with. But I don't think I'm going to.
Sure.
I will say before I make my first pick, in consideration for bad games, this is how I come to the realization. It is either all four of these things or a combination of them or just one really strongly. First consideration is how bad was it for me personally? Do I have any bad memories of it or do you have any bad memories of it?
Yeah.
Therefore, would it be a good position on your team to weigh you down? How much potential did it ruin? Now, this can be for how good the game could have been, when you hear about it and think about it, and then it just becomes trash. Is it a bad licensed game, et cetera, et cetera? How much did it objectively stink? Never mind me personally, but like you said, how bad were the reviews? And then relative to the rest of the franchise, if there were a really good franchise and this was the stinker, then I think that weights it a little bit more. So a lot of it comes down to potential upside versus actual downside, and then objective and subjective experience with the game.
Sure. Okay. I think that makes total sense.
Okay. With the number one pick in the 1995 worst year of the world draft, worst year of the world, worst year in gaming history of the draft, I have to go with my little boy compared to the big boy. It is Donkey Kong Country 2 on the Super Nintendo.
Congratulations. You're going to be taking that for a good game.
Well, 100%. It's often considered to be the best in the franchise. Yeah.
Okay, I guess. Okay, well, with my number one... Well, okay, that was good.
Is that not what you expected?
No.
Really?
Now, okay, I have to... fuck. Okay, so what I was going to do, but I'm realizing now I don't think I can, is I wanted to give you, with the worst game, I wanted to give you Desert Bus, which came out in 1995. But I don't know if it was ever technically released.
No, Andrew. Okay. You got so fucking in my head before this draft. That was the number one that I wanted to give to you. 100%.
It's the worst game ever created. I'm reading a New Yorker article. Desert Bus, the very worst video game ever created.
So the worst game ever created, which came out in 1995 and also kind of didn't even come out in 1995, is Penn and Teller Smoke and Mirrors. Desert Bus is the mini game on it that is most famous and most well known.
It was a satire against anti-video game lobbyists in the early 90s of everything being sensationalized with sex and gore and stuff like that, which is kind of funny to look at back now. And so they created the most boring video game of all time, or a section of the most boring video game of all time. Yeah. And so if I'm allowed to, because Smoke and Mirrors did come out, I probably will be giving you a worst game with Penn and Teller's Smoke and Mirrors.
Andrew, I'm so like you fucked me up. Like you really fucked with me there. I was 100% geared to going into this with the number one pick being Penn and Teller's Smoke and Mirrors. I had like a whole, I want to talk about this game for 10 minutes right now.
Let's do it.
So Desert Bus, as you mentioned, was the one of the mini games in Penn and Teller Smoke and Mirrors. So let's talk about all 6 games in Smoke and Mirrors. There are 2 games which are called tricks. One is called What's Your Sign, and which is where one person enters their birthday, one person who is the magician, quote unquote, enters the birthday of this quote unquote sucker, the person that they're playing the trick on, and then the sucker answers a couple questions about their astrological sign, and the game guesses it completely. The other one, the quote unquote magician, pre-selects a card. The sucker pulls a card from a deck. It automatically gives them that card, and then it asks them a question and then shows them their card. Like, these are not games. These are not video games. These are little tricks that will work one time, because you do it once and like do it again. And you're like, okay, turn away from the screen. Like, how's that going to work?
So the game distinguishes between the owner of the game, who is aware of the functionality, and the unsuspecting person, the sucker.
Yes.
Using the hidden owner menu, the owner can set up certain minigames to play practical jokes on the sucker.
It's amazing.
What is this? It's just crazy. And so the thing I was referencing is Desert Bus, which is there's nothing more to this than what I'm about to explain. It's an 8-hour ride driving a bus along a straight, empty road.
Yes.
That's all you have to do. Just keep it on the road for 8 straight hours.
There's a little bit more to it than that.
Well, wait, what?
The history of this game is confounding because what you've described is all you do in the game. You drive a bus from Tucson, Arizona to Las Vegas at a maximum top speed of 45 miles an hour. This is across 360 miles. So it takes 8 hours in real time to get from point A to point B. Here's one of the kickers. The bus has a natural pull to the right, so you have to constantly be readjusting where it goes. The game cannot be paused. The game can't be paused at all.
That's amazing.
Say you complete the drive, this 8-hour drive, which means you had to sit in front of your TV screen for 8 hours, kind of adjusting the truck or the bus, which, by the way, there's no other cars in the game. It's just desert highway. Say you do it, you're awarded 1 point and the option to turn around and do the drive again, which is what a reward. What a 1 point. This is a great prank that happened on the video game community. If you fail, like if you don't correct the steering of the bus and it goes off road, you have to get towed back to where you started in real time. So you sit there and wait for the bus to go back. Now, there was kind of a game that was played with this or a competition that was put in place. The intention was the person with the highest score was supposed to win a real trip with Penn and Teller on a party bus from Tucson to Las Vegas, and then you get to stay in Las Vegas.
I was just going to read that part because that's the most amazing part, because this person is completely a sociopath and you're like, I want to hang out with this guy. Like, that's just crazy.
That's the thing. You're guaranteeing that you're going to be on a party bus for 8 hours with the strangest human being that's ever been invented.
Yeah. You know, I actually don't go to the bathroom. It's a weird condition I was born with. Oh, okay, cool. All right, sweet.
As long as someone's holding my hand and you're like, what?
Yeah. Actually, I pee out of my mouth. It's just, it's one of the biggest practical jokes of all time and just an awful, truly just like the worst video game of all time because of its simplicity. But that was the number one with a bullet for me was Smoke and Mirrors, but really Desert Bus inside Smoke and Mirrors. Yeah,
100%. That's the one that people know about. Now, we mentioned, like you said, you're like, I don't know if the game actually came out that year. The game somehow, based on they said it took 5 minutes to program the game Desert Bus, by the way. The game still was delayed a year. They sent review copies out with an intended release of like April of 1995 or something like that. And the company that was supposed to release it ran out of money by the time the game was supposed to come out. So they couldn't even afford to ship it. And then they just went bankrupt. The game never really existed, which is wild. Smoke and Mirrors, though, was also the name of a mini game within the Smoke and Mirrors game that you purchase. It's a beat 'em up. What's that?
Smoke and Mirrors verse.
Smoke and Mirrors verse. In the Smoke and Mirrors verse, exactly. Yeah, consisting of Penn and Teller and Penn and Teller only. It was a beat 'em up like Double Dragon, where you control Penn and Teller trying to take down parody versions of Siegfried and Roy. I guess this is before the Siberian Tiger got to them first, but
yes.
And it also features Debbie Harry and Lou Reed in the game.
What the hell?
Yeah.
Okay, so this verse is getting bigger then. I shouldn't have made that joke.
Honestly, Smoke and Mirrors, that sounds like worth the price of admission, if I'm being honest.
It feels like a game we should try playing, but this is like one of those ones where it seems like a great idea. Like, oh, it's going to be so bad, it's going to be whatever. And we get like 10 minutes into it, it's like, I don't want to play this.
Exactly.
This is boring.
Yeah, this is boring now. The Lou Reed character is fucking killed me. He kind of serves the role of like the abominable snowman in Ski Free, where he just shows up and kicks the shit out of Penn and Teller, and they can't do anything about it.
Lou Reed was ecstatic with this idea. There's no way he's not like, really? I just come and kick the shit out of people? He's like, I love it.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. What else do you need me for? So that, I think, I agree with you, Andrew, 100%. I think that's the best pick of the draft. I just got so in my head that I didn't want to make it. Instead, I went with Donkey Kong Country 2 for some stupid reason.
Well, congratulations. You now have 2 games on your team.
Thank you very much for that.
No problem.
I'm going to put a game on your team now, Andrew. And you know what? I'm going to start. I don't want us to not be friends. You know, we got into it on the last couple episodes about how, you know, maybe I need to be a bit more social. Maybe you need to be able to trust me a little bit more. So I want to kind of extend the olive branch, Andrew. Okay. The year is 1995. I know you love sports video games, right?
I do.
I know you love basketball sports games, right?
I love basketball.
I know you love basketball sports arcade games, right?
Yes, I'm wearing my Scotty Barnes t-shirt right now.
Oh, there you go. See, this is Andrew, we're going to be good friends after this because this is really going to tickle you. I know you love basketball arcade games with the word jam in them, don't you?
I do.
Okay, then welcome to your team, Barkley, Shut Up and Jam 2.
Barkley, Shut Up and Jam 2? There was 2 of them?
There was a Charles Barkley Shut Up and Jam 1. Apparently, the players didn't get the message. They kept talking. They kept flapping those lips. Charles Barkley comes back
taking jump shots and running their gums.
Charles Barkley Shut Up and Jam 2 is apparently one of the worst basketball games that have come out. It came out in 1995. And I love, going back to that idea of like anticipation and then it not being it. I know you love NBA Jam, and the idea of having to play the wish.com version of it for the rest of eternity really tickles me pink.
I love Chuck. I love him. Is the best on television. I'm glad he made some money. I'm good for him. But yeah, Shut Up and Jam 2 was not high on my list of to be taken. So yeah, unfortunately.
Oh, come on.
It's terrible.
It's terrible. This game's terrible.
Yeah, one of the greatest nicknames of all time, the round mound of rebound.
I've never heard that before. That's amazing.
Yeah, round mound of rebound. He's so good. He's like 6'5". He's not like the fact that he was able to rebound the way he was with his gigantic posterior, just incredible stuff. So, unfortunately, didn't help him when he developed this video game. For some reason, it really tickles me of him just like coding, like, oh, it's tough. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was a one-man development team, and it was him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got his glasses on, it's like readers on. You're like, oh god. Okay, Barkley, Shut Up and Jam 2. Wow, welcome to the team.
The tall chode of code, they called him.
Tall chode of code. Oh god. Okay, so Barkley, Shut Up and Jam. Welcome to the team. Really excited. So we have 2 bad games that have been picked, 1 good game. What do I do next? I'm gonna stick. I think there's a lot of good games this year, so I'm probably gonna go back to bad. Okay. I am gonna. Oh yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go with this one. I am gonna give you a game and really even a concept and a character that I've never fully understood. Okay. I think
I know exactly where you're going with this one.
Yeah, I'm just a little too old to really appreciate what was so cool about this character. There has been movies, there's been comics, and most famously action figures, because the dark, twisted mind of Todd McFarlane could not ever conceive of an idea that isn't so dark and twisted.
Oh, so
of course I'm going to go with Todd McFarlane's Spawn, the video game.
This actually isn't what I thought you were going to do, but I had this on my list of potential very bad games, and this one I kind of put in the field. I agree, of like ruined potential. Like, why don't we have a very good Spawn game? Spawn games always suck, but Spawn, I think, is it just that he's too edgelordy? Like, I don't know.
But that's the thing, is like I said, I never really understood the appeal of Spawn, because by the time I really loved video game characters, comic book characters, Spawn was just one of many, and there was probably many offshoots of Spawn. But like when Spawn first came out, he was so dark and so like edgy, like you're saying, that like you couldn't believe it. But then Marvel turned around and went, okay, make the Punisher 50% worse, and you're like, oh, okay, cool, and then you kind of balanced each other out, or many different characters, or Cable, or whoever it is. So I've never really understood the appeal of Spawn, but yet, fuck, do I know who Todd McFarlane is? Yes. Do I know what Spawn is? Yes. It's like, why? Because he's so ubiquitous, and I've just heard that this game is not great.
Well, I know that I tried a lot of side-scrolling beat-em-up games as a kid back in the rental era. Why wouldn't you? I don't think I ever played Spawn this version, but I had played Spawn games, because I did see the movie, like the one from way back in the day, the live action, and I was like, this is really fucking cool. I like this. But the video game looks pretty run of the mill. And if I'm going to do a side scroll and beat 'em up, I want to do something with a skin that I appreciate a little bit more than the edginess of Spawn, when it clearly doesn't work very well.
Yeah, like I will say too, is that there is a common criticism you see with some of these negative games, and it's not even that they're bad, like unplayable bad. It's more that they're like, oh god, another fucking beat 'em up, and this beat 'em up is not as good as the other ones, and you're getting a lot of that and going like, and so therefore it's one of the worst games of the year, and you're like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe how bad it is. I will say, for Spawn's credit, even though I just gave them to you, but I'm just doing it, the graphics aren't bad. They look okay. It's just the playability.
Yeah, it's I looked up that game and the sprites themselves look pretty cool. I think it was a 16-bit game when the 32-bit era was coming to the forefront. So a lot of people were like, well, this should be better. And it's like, well, I guess it was just developed for an earlier console. But I don't love being stuck with it. And I don't appreciate the guff you're giving me, but here we are now.
I think Todd McFarlane's Canadian, by the way.
He is. He designed the third jersey for the Edmonton Oilers way back in the day.
Oh, he did. It was the oil with the nut around it or whatever it is, the dropping oil thing.
Yeah, it was like a flaming oil nut or something like that. Yeah.
Not good.
Not great, Bob.
It's not great, Bob. And the other thing I think I know about him is he bought Mark McGuire's home run ball for $10 million or something crazy.
Jesus.
Like he bought the one that broke the record. But yeah, there you go.
Oh wow. Yeah. Does that ball become less valuable if the record is broken again later?
Well, 1,000% it is. Oh, there you go. In 1998, McFarlane, an avid baseball fan, paid $2.6 million at an auction for St. Louis Cardinals first baseman Mark McGuire. He went then record-breaking 70th home run ball, and he also bought the second one too. So yeah.
Because Aaron Judge beat that, didn't he?
No, it would be Barry Bonds. But
Bonds, okay.
Yeah, Aaron Judge hit 61, or 60 something, whatever, which was the Yankees record, AL record too.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Okay, I don't care.
Yep, I know you don't, so that's why I was surprised you asked.
I'm bored, Andrew. Can I get to my next pick?
You can. I'm kind of afraid of what you're going to give me though.
Okay. Well, I just got a bad game. You have one more bad game to give. And I don't know if I want to give you a bad game just yet, because there are some, maybe because you got the smoke and mirrors one, the Michael Jordan. I gotta go Detroit Pistons and really up my defense here. I gotta get gritty with the opposite. I gotta go hard on the good games.
Okay.
So I started with Donkey Kong Country 2 as a good game here. I'm going to go with another good game, which a lot of people consider to be one of the better offshoots of this franchise. It's one. Well, I mean, there's a lot of offshoots in this year, but I'm going to go with the one that is less to do with the namesake of it, which is Super Mario World 2. I'm going to go with Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. One of the very well remembered games that came out on the Super Nintendo and in the franchise. We talked about in our 300th episode why it's Super Mario World 2 : Yoshi's Island, because of all of the weird controversy surrounding Super Mario World 2. But let's go with that. That was the Super Mario Bros. Never mind. Yeah.
Yes, I obviously great pick. Hard to fight that one. I'm very disappointed I didn't get it. I don't know if I'll ever overcome this, but
it doesn't look like it, Andrew. You look like I think I fucking hurt you, and it feels
hurt my feelings.
It feels good.
It feels good.
Yeah, this is what it feels like. I think to be powerful. I'm rock hard right now.
It's the same feeling you had when you locked your mother away. Okay, so all right, yeah, fuck. Okay, so you have two good games and. You have two
of the best, some might say.
Well, no, you know what's funny? I thought you were going to do something else, and I think I'm going to take that now because I don't want to go another round without getting a good game, finally a good game. I am going to be taking, a lot of game of the year this year, a lot of game of the year for this game. I'm talking like Donald Trump all of a sudden. A lot of people saying I'm going to take Mortal Kombat 3.
Okay.
It's a universally loved game, even We're Not Fighting Boys, and it's like, well, Mortal Kombat 3, that's a good game. And so I just thought this would be a really good starting rotation guy that I can get, just a good, for the first good game I'm picking to lock down at least a good start.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat 3 was one that I had considered, believe it or not, for both my good and my bad. And the reason I considered it for the bad is because from Mortal Kombat's 1 through 4, 3 seems to be the one. I mean, 4 is actually really bad, but it fell off after 2. Even though 3 was incredibly well performing, it sold incredibly well. It removed a couple key characters, including Scorpion, and a lot of people had some issues with that. So I was like, man, do I really want to plant my flag in a Mortal Kombat game that isn't peak of the franchise when there are so many other unique games I could choose? But clearly the numbers don't lie. That game sold incredibly well that in 1995.
Yeah, and there's a Game of the Year buzz. It's got there's 20 different publications, so who the hell knows? But it's generally a pretty good game. So I thought putting my flag down on this one would be a good start. So Mortal Kombat 3, my first good game I'm picking. Do you want to recap where we're at right now?
Sure, that sounds good. I'll start. I've got 2 good games in Donkey Kong Country 2 and Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. And then I have 1 bad game that I've placed on your team, which is Charles Barkley, Shut Up and Jam 2.
I have Mortal Kombat 3 for a good game, and I've given you 2 bad games, Penn and Teller's Smoke and Mirrors, and Todd McFarlane's Spawn, the video game.
Yeah, there's some, those are some decent picks, Andrew. I'm not going to lie. I'm particularly jealous, as I've said 1,000 times on this episode before, of you mind gaming the shit out of me and taking Smoke and Mirrors as the second pick. I'm still not happy with myself about that.
I was just trying to say there is a number 1 pick, and then when you didn't choose it, I was like, oh, no one's more surprised than me.
Okay, so it's my pick now. I'm going to go back to the realm of bad games, and I considered this one a lot because there are a lot of this is the era of good games with franchises that were kind of trying to figure themselves out, and a lot of the times when they should have gone right, they go left. And I think I'm gonna do something similar to what I did with my Barkley Shut Up and Jam 2. I'm going to give you something that I think you might actually like, okay?
Okay. Oh, that's nice, yeah.
Andrew, I can't be the only one who walks out of this draft head held high with a Mario game under my belt. You love Mario.
I love Mario.
We played a ton of Mario on the 300th episode. We love Super Mario World.
Yep.
Yeah. Great. Just unbelievable.
Yeah.
You want a Mario game? Do you want me to give you a Mario game?
Mikey, nothing would make me happier than having a Mario game on my team.
Okay, so why don't you put down that controller and pick up that pen and paper to help you do some math equations for Mario's Picross.
Mario's what?
Mario's Picross. I can't believe you're not jumping up and down with how excited you are at this game. It's pretty much
Picross.
It's like, imagine if Mario really liked Sudokus. Doesn't that hit at the core of why we love Mario? I don't even like jumping. I don't like running and jumping. That's boring to me. Give me a black and white screen and a bunch of numbers to figure out. That's what I want in my Mario.
Wow, I'm looking this up now. Yeah, you're right. It is a lot like Sudoku.
It looks like they found it in the fucking New York Times. It looks so boring.
Well, as a person that does the crossword every day, I have to say I am getting old. The older I get, the more attractive this game is turning into. But it is a compilation of nonogram logic puzzles. I'm gonna let that.
That's what we know and love Mario for.
Picross. Just in case people can't hear this correctly, it is Picross. Yes, that is a word I've never heard before. Wow.
This is one that, like, weirdly, it wasn't terribly received, but
no, not at all.
No, but the reviews that people have of the game are the bad ones are like, let's take all the fun out of Mario and do some math. Like, what are we doing? Why Mario? It could be anybody.
I'm not. Yeah, 8.5 out of 10, 86 out of 100, 8 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 90%, 78%. Super play. Sorry, buddy. 80 out of 100 and 8 out of 10. So people did and there was a Picross 2. What the hell?
There was a Picross 2 as well. Yeah.
And it is, there were 8 installments of the series, each one having a different theme. Pokemon, Yoshi's Story, Kirby's, Star Fox 64, The Legends of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Super Mario 64, Wario Land 2, and Donkey Kong Country. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it was a tough choice because I know it was decently received, but I also know there's a bunch of fucking nerds out there who want to pretend like they think they're smart. So if they write a review about math and they say it's bad, then people are going to be like, it's bad because you're bad at math. I'm just going to go out there. Yeah, I'm going to be like, I'm giving quantum physics a 10 out of 10. And everyone's going to be like, wow, he must be really smart.
He doesn't understand what quantum physics are. It's not about fractions. Wow. Well, thank you very much. You've not only given me a game, you've taught me about a new game I didn't know existed.
Yeah, there you go.
Nonogram logic puzzles. I'm going to try and find this game. Do you ever play New York Time Connections?
No, you've told me about this one. This is the one where it's well, describe it. I don't remember.
It's a grid of 4x4, and each square is a different word, and you have to create a connection between 4 of those. So you're creating 4 different lines, and so if you press all 4 and then you click submit, it'll tell you if you got one. And so it's a lot of fun in the way that it might be like what was the other day? It was like platinum, strawberry, bleach, and something else, and it was
Blonde.
like types of blondes. Yes, but like when you look at a grid of them, it gets very tough because it could be strawberries, and then blueberries is another clue.
No, I have played this game.
It's a lot of fun, and I swear to God, it is going to help me as I get older, like trying to find connections between things.
I think that's important, honestly, doing those sorts of games. And I think video games will also play a role in like staving off the constant deterioration of our mental state. I do think that'll have something to do with it.
Yes, I completely agree with you. So yeah, this is Picross. Wow. Hey, teaching us something new. All right. So for what is this going to be? Fourth pick.
This is your fourth pick.
I'm going to go back to good. And I can't help myself. I just can't help myself because I got to start taking stuff that old Andy B likes. And this is going to be the first iteration, the first time this series of games were released in 1995 with the inception of Westwood Studios. This is an important series for me. I'm going to be taking Command and Conquer.
I already, right when you started talking, Andrew, copy and pasted it into your selections. I knew where you were going with it. You know, it's not the Tim Curry version of Command and Conquer where you get that one of the greatest FMV performances of all time.
And he's desperately trying not to laugh while he's laughing.
And they're like, should we do another take when you're not laughing at our script? He's like,
you get one.
No.
You get one, and I'm reading it cold.
Tim Curry, it may not be the first time he shows up on the draft list. I'm not sure if you know about that.
Whoa, no, really?
Okay, I'll talk about it later.
That makes me excited.
Command and Conquer, it's a fantastic game. And in the era of real-time strategy games, that was what I consider to be the golden age. I know a lot of people like how they've gotten more complicated. I actually liked them because of their simplicity back then. Age of Empires 2 being similar, but Command and Conquer, fantastic pick.
Yeah, Command and Conquer, Age of Mythology, Age of Empires.
Sorry, did you say Command and Conquer?
Oh yeah, Command and Conquer's Bad Fur Day.
Command and Conquer's Bad Fur Day. Oh, yes. That is a totally different game. I did not copy the right one over.
No? Oh, I thought it was pretty good. Yeah. I think Charles also had a hand in making that one too.
Charles, the chode of code is getting in our way.
So Command and Conquer, that's the fourth pick.
Okay, I'm going to go with my fifth pick then. I'm going to go with one that, honestly, it's almost surprising to me that it took this long to get picked. It's another good game. I'm kind of strategically going good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. I'm going to go with one of the more, maybe it's a niche pick, but I think is largely considered to be legitimately one of the greatest games ever released. It finally got its re-release on the Nintendo Switch Online. It's for the Super Nintendo, and it is Earthbound, the US release of Earthbound.
Very well done. Yes. A game you've talked about for a while now. Tried to play it. I struggle with the JRPGs, and I know that it's kind of like a commentary on that structure of game, but it still functions as one. And I've been considering, instead of Earthbound, playing Undertale, because I hear that that's kind of a similar comment on the genre that it's encompassing. So I don't know. I've never played this game, but I've only heard really, really good things. So I don't know. I don't have a lot to contribute other than you're just picking a legend, and that's very smart.
That's kind of it. Maybe the biggest name of games to come out of this year, even if it's not the most highest selling of the games of the year.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So, I'm going to be rounding out your bad teams that I'm going to be giving you with the last pick for my bad squad here. This one I had to go to. This was so much fun to read about. I'm going to be giving you Justice League Task Force Genesis.
Oh no, that was my bad pick for you. Fuck.
If anyone, it's a fighting game based on the comic series of the same name, Task Force. Yeah. Justice League Task Force, where the Justice League has to fight each other because of, mind control. It doesn't really matter. And but I will say, in 1995, this is peak Superman with a mullet time. So if anyone wants a real kick, look up the cover art for this, and it looks like someone's angry dad in a Superman costume. It is unbelievable. But I just want us to read some reviews. It got a 5.875, so specific, from EGM. Poor controls, poor special moves. It's too much work to be any fun, is one direct quote. The other one is, squint your eyes and you could swear you're playing any of the other fighting games. That just doesn't mean Justice League is awful. It's just really normal, and that's bad.
That sucks. That's like I think about what makes Injustice such a good game, and it's that it takes no effort to be really fun. You press a button and you punch Superman through the world. Like, this felt like almost trying to be as strategic as like a Street Fighter, and just kind of failing at that and not being big and flashy and falling somewhere in the middle. Like, normal Justice League is like the worst case scenario.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I have written down Injustice, which, like, it scared them off for 20 years making another fighting game, because they're like, well, remember that last one? That was terrible, you know? Yeah. And it's like, this should be so good. Superheroes fighting each other. Oh my God. How is it bad? And just like, they just keep describing how boring it is over and over again.
And that's the peak, like the designation of bad games that I had, the one where it's like, how much potential did it ruin? That's where I think that Justice League came in number one. And I had Justice League and another game circled for kind of the same reasons. And I don't want to take it because it's almost too similar to the Justice League pick that you just made. So I'm going to go to a pick I honestly didn't expect to make for a variety of reasons, because it isn't a terrible game per se, but it is probably the worst version of the game that's been released on any console. And if you look up video of it, it looks like it would make you vomit like immediately. The frame rate sucks. The sound isn't as good. The controls are atrocious, especially given the fact that it's played on a Super Nintendo controller for what it is. It's Doom on the Super Nintendo.
Whoa! Doom on the Super Nintendo.
Now, the reason why is it's another one of those like ordered on wish.com things where it's like, Doom, that's great. Fucking I'll play Doom all day, every day. It's like, oh, but the shotgun doesn't seem as powerful as it is. And the graphics aren't quite where they are. And the frame rate is like 2 frames per second. And there's a ton of slowdown. And the turning radius is really awkward to control with a D-pad. And you just don't get to play it's like, there's a better version out there, but you get to play the worst version of it.
Yeah, and that's what always people look forward to. They're like, oh, good, the worst version. I really love that. Yeah, like, yeah. Do you kids love Doom? It's like, yeah, well, not this one.
Not anymore.
Yeah, I looked at this one. This one was written down for me too, and yeah, that's great. Awesome, love it. Very, very good. I got one game left, and it's a good game, so that's a nice way to end this. I could go back a lot of fourth. Well, I can name picks because this is the last pick of the draft. I am shocked you didn't take Comic Zone. But there's some real big games left. I'm just going to name games that I am not picking.
Okay, that's not your pick. That's not your pick.
No.
Yeah.
Rayman, Twisted Metal, Worms, games we've talked about on this podcast. But I, once again, can't help myself. I am who I am. I can't change my colors. And so I took a fighting game to start. And then I took a real-time strategy.
Okay.
And now I'll be taking a sports arcade game. I'm going to be taking WWF, WrestleMania, the arcade game.
Man, you went so subjective with these picks. When you rattled off that list of games and you didn't pick them, I'm like, Rayman was a real hard non-pick for me, because really hard, especially you and I going back, we're like, Rayman was so fucking ahead of its time. Good. It's a great game. Yeah. But WrestleMania, I agree, man. That game is a ton of fun.
It's so much fun. And I had to go back and check to go like, even though I liked it, like I'm trying to think of like where could the holes be poked into it. And for the arcade game, it's like nearly a perfect game. Like it wins almost every award. It's when you start getting into like Sega Genesis or Saturn. Oh no, Sega Genesis territory.
Genesis was good. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, then it gets like, starts getting a little creaky, but really it's pretty much everything above 75 anyway, even on the worst version. So WWF WrestleMania, a game that you just don't get that version of anymore. That kind of highly arcadey stimuli style.
100%. I think that's a great pick to especially give a snapshot of what 1995 was like.
Yeah.
Most notably absent, I think, from our lists is Chrono Trigger, which is like one of the biggest JRPGs of all time. Something that I never got into, and I know it's popular. I don't think it's quite as well received as Chrono Cross. I always get those two mixed up, which is like a huge no-no. But I do. So sue me. I don't fucking care. I don't give a fuck anymore. I didn't get my first pick of the draft, and it threw me off, and I was in my head the whole time. And honestly, I didn't even enjoy this.
You didn't even get your first pick of the draft. You had the first pick of the draft. Who are you complaining?
Yeah, but I didn't know I was going to be drafting against a fucking mind master magician over here. What the fuck? I didn't know I was going to be drafting against Penn and Teller themselves.
I just say there's one good game out there and you're like, Jesus Christ. Oh my God, what am I going to do?
It's like Andrew did the equivalent of like going to a rock, paper, scissors concert. A rock, paper, those are the best concerts. Going to a rock, paper, scissors. going to a rock paper. It's just silence of like
ASMR. I think it's ASMR just hitting into the microphone.
Yeah. No, going to a rock paper scissors competition and being like, guys, I'm only throwing rock, and winning it by only throwing rock.
You say on 3, and you just already have rock out there. And it's like, whoa, this guy's insane.
Yeah, so let's recap the picks. I got Donkey Kong Country 2. I've got Charles Barkley, Shut Up and Jam 2. I've got Super Mario World 2. A lot of 2s I'm picking. Yoshi's Island, Mario's Picross, Earthbound, and Doom, specifically on the SNES.
I took, for my good games, Mortal Kombat 3, Command & Conquer, and WWF WrestleMania, the arcade game. And for bad games, I gave Mikey Penn and Teller's Smoke and Mirrors, Todd McFarlane's Spawn, the video game, and Justice League Task Force Genesis.
Nice. Some great picks.
Pretty good.
That was a lot of fun.
I'm glad, sometimes we are competing for similar picks all the time, and it's like, shit, who's going to take this one? I liked that our picks were very, very different. And that I think they constructed very, very different teams, which I like.
Yeah, I think these ones are fun because it's more about let's just draw as much attention to as many weird, good and bad games that are out there. This was great. And I love doing these sorts of drafts. I especially love the bad drafts that we do like this one. It's a little bit different from what we normally get into. And let us know over in social media, in the comments, send us an email. Let us know who you think won this draft and why Andrew is a scumbag for using mental tricks on me before my pick.
That's terrible.
That's terrible.
I honestly, it's not bad. It's not good. It's not good, but it's not bad.
It's not bad. You know what's not bad, Andrew?
What's that?
Listener mail. In fact, it's great. We got some more listener mail that I wanted to read here from a longtime listener. Hi guys, Toe McDowell from Twitter here. And by the way, it's spelled TOA, but they also call themselves Thor. So I think it's like I remember this from Alan Wake 2. I think TOA may be pronounced Thor. I don't know for sure. I'm a big dumb idiot who doesn't even understand what Picross is, so don't come at me. Toa McDowell from Twitter here. Belated congrats on the anniversary. I wanted to send a thanks for the awesome podcastery in time for the last episode, but I'm too verbose and in my head to just sit down and write that real quick. And with Tekken 8 swooping in to steal my free time, there was no way for me to get it done in a timely manner. Seriously though, thanks a ton for those years of quality entertainment. Love the format, the banter, the good spirit with which you approach games that only their creators could love. I wish I had the reach to help boost the Retrograde pod, but IMO, unfairly hidden gem to a deservedly or highly exposed gem. But I exist in a tiny, culturally irrelevant corner of the world called Scandinaviopolis, where wrist lock is mistaken for wristwatch and podcast is liable to be mistaken for pod racing. Now we're pod racing.
Hey,
I did, however, manage to turn one university buddy into a fellow joypad.
Hey,
we call ourselves D-pad. I don't know if you call them joypads in Scandinavia.
That must be a conversion rate thing, or I don't know, something like that.
it must be. Yeah. Lost in translation. I've linked some of our Facebook talks about the pod through 2020 to 2023. He's a normal listen to a podcast upon release person where I'm as a wait several hours for stuff and lose myself in the style binge freak, which led to a pretty funny exchange when we read one of his tweets on the episode. So just a really nice example. And then he says, sorry, I hope seeing evidence of y'all being huge pod stars all the way over in Vikingville helps keep you trucking just like Desert Bus for another half decade and beyond. All the best. Love hearing things like that, especially, we always ask for reviews. And by the way, still the call to action to leave a 5-star iTunes review that says you get used to them is still out there.
I was going to say,
see them, but it's still nice to hear that someone has. Yes, exactly. That someone's gotten a friend into the podcast. That always goes a long way as well. And send us your thoughts, send us your mail, drop a line, say hi, the retrograde podcast at gmail.com or on our social media. We love to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a ton of fun. So we're going to keep doing some more pick drafts. And I love giving you bad games. Also, talking about bad games is just fun, inherently fun.
It is.
Why they don't work and things like that. So yes, thank you so much for listening. We love every single one of you, and we can't wait to talk to you soon. My name's Andrew Bascom, and with me as always is the bad boy of podcasting, Mr. Bebop himself,
Mikey Aaronworth.
This is the Retrograde Podcast.
Game over. I think. I don't know, you've got my mind in a fucking vice over here, Andrew.
Furnished by Sad Styles Productions.
The tall chode of code.